When you turn the ball over 5 times, 4 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, 3 others in field position to set up touchdowns, you ain't gonna beat anybody.
That's my team. That's my quarterback.
I'm very disappointed with my behavior.
Ready, down!
Welcome to the Between the Whistles podcast. I am Coach Mack. I am here with Coach Josh and Coach Bobby Tink. Say hello, guys.
What's going on?
Yeah, how's it going?
Anyone?
Yeah, Bueller.
So welcome. We wanted to start this first round of podcasts with a topic that is obviously very relevant right now, which is off-season. We are currently now in a football drought. All football, from a coaching perspective, is kind of paused. We're really in the middle of the dry season, which is not indicative of the weather because it is not dry out there. But we certainly are in a dry season. And let's talk about the off-season, guys. What do you recommend kids do in the off-season?
I mean, the obvious one is you start out, the season's over. You got to have a little rest period to, let your body recover from, the pounding you just took all season. But as soon as you're, able to and the program's set up, it's right into lifting weights and getting bigger, faster, stronger.
So if you're, do you think that kids should just immediately get right back on the horse?
No, I think that if your season ends in, say, the beginning of November, you should wait until probably the end of December. Get through that because no one's going to work out over Christmas. In January, start with whatever you have set up, start that program then.
Okay. And I think, like, a lot of people think that kids should be playing football in the off-season. Should they be doing football-related drills, activities, or should they maybe hit the weights? What do you guys think?
I'm more of a weight guy. I mean, it differs for sure. I think there's a time and place. I mean, you don't really get much done in a school gym, right? It's hard to run routes, and it's hard to work on timing in a school gym. So I think it's more important to be lifting and getting stronger. And then when the springtime comes, maybe start, building back up. But again, it comes back to what facilities you have.
I definitely think that, you can't really lift heavy during a football season because you can't. It's really difficult with muscle soreness and everything. And practices, talking at the high school level, you're seeing practices almost every day. So the ability to actually do some real lifting during a football season is pretty slim to none. So is that a good time in the off season to then bulk up again?
Yeah, I'd say like in-season lifting and that type of stuff is at the high school level very hard unless you're able to get into a gym in the morning before practice, or you can lift during like a gym class or something. But in terms of the structure of a high school program, there's just not enough time in the day to do it under, in a practice schedule.
Yeah.
In the off season, though, I mean, I'm not opposed to, like, if you want to go do like your football drills and you have a place to do those. I think it helps, because you're talking in some positions like having fluid hips and lifting heavy weights, and if you're not falling into a nice program and you're not stretching nice, it's not a bad idea. Like if you're a DB to keep backpedaling, to keep those skills up, so that come end of August, mid-August, you're it's second nature still, right?
Yeah, but I think, like, some positions it's easier to do that, right? Like, so for a DB, it's easier for him to be in the gym, working on backpedaling, working on, switching the hips. And a lot of that can be mimicked with certain things that you're going to do in the weight room. Where for, like, I don't know, like a receiver, I mean, it's hard for them to work on, proper timing and proper route running when they're inside on a gym floor. But they can work on footwork and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's
right?
just different skills that you're gonna work on given what you have available to you. Obviously, in snowy Canada, you can go run routes outside right now today.
Yeah,
it's not gonna be the greatest thing for you, but sure, if you and your buddies want to go throw a football around, go ahead.
It's hardly going to be a good representation of what you would see on a football field.
No, that's right.
Preparing you for football in Sweden.
And on top of that, though, you got kids that that are multi-sport athletes from all ages, right? So if you're in Mike football and you're 6, 7 years old, maybe you're playing Timbits hockey or novice hockey as well, which now runs from October to March, April. So I don't know. There's probably not enough time in the day to do everything you want to do. And maybe you can't do football-specific drills because you're in another sport, which is fine. And if you're playing another sport, you're going to miss out on the lifting of weights because you're not going to lift heavy unless you're like hardcore and you want to lift. A lot of kids just don't do.
No, leg days out the window if you're playing basketball.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
And I'm a firm believer that, and I believe that multi-sport athletes, and this is probably another topic for another podcast,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I think multi-sport athletes are probably still in a great position to become a great football player, for example. But I believe that we can always get better. And during the off season, especially, I think getting better at your sport can be, working out, getting stronger, getting even playing basketball. You're still getting, more agile, more strong. You're vertical, whatever it is you're working on on a basketball court can translate to a football field. And as long as you're doing something, I think guys who let themselves slide and are playing Madden in the off season are usually the guys who come to camp probably in the worst shape.
And that's basically what you're trying to do, right? Is you're just trying to, in the off season, you want to get bigger, faster, stronger, so that come August you're a different player than you were in November when you left.
Yeah.
You look different, you can act different, you carry yourself different, and that now you're more confident on a football field because you're no longer the small kid or you're no longer the flabby big kid, and you're stronger, you're able to handle things differently. But also in off season though, you've got to still do some football related stuff in not necessarily drills, but you should do playbook stuff.
Yeah.
Watching film.
Wait, so you're saying that Madden doesn't make you a smarter football player?
Madden does not, man. I think I played for coaches that I think like Buzz Duo was the defense we played, and I think I can find that on Madden. So no, Madden does not make you a better football player. There's no, you can't press X, Y, and circle.
Yeah. No, listen, I'd be a much better football player if I had a juke button on either side.
That's right.
There's no glitches out there.
No truck button, right? Can't use the joystick.
No. So I had an opportunity to talk to a professional about this so we could get more of an expert opinion on the matter. So with me today is Alex Fitzpatrick, or as I like to call him, Fitzsexy. Alex is a former varsity football player, several years with St. Mary's University. He's a part-time powerlifter, and he's a part-time strength and conditioning coach. He's worked with a lot of high school kids for us. Alex, welcome.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. Super excited. We just got done with a training session with the boys, and I'm feeling good.
So, Alex, what do you recommend kids who are just coming out of football season, how do you recommend they spend the off season?
Okay, so the good thing about off season and with football is it's such a long period of time. In Atlantic Canada, at least, you'll have 6-7 months off potentially if you're just a football athlete. So I would spend a decent proportion of time right off the bat just focusing on recovery. You're going to get banged up throughout the season, so eating good food, moving around, getting the stretching in, kind of getting your body back to where it was prior to the season is definitely huge. That would be my first step. I think it's definitely cool that we're doing this podcast now with the sort of NFL Combine coming up. It seems pretty relevant. I think when you look at football as a sport, it's super unique for training. I mean, you have so many different types of body sizes and different requirements of the sport that it's tough necessarily to design one training program for a whole team. You almost have to look at the individual athlete and their goals. But I think it comes down to when you look at off-season training in general, there's three sort of concrete things that go across all positions, and that's you want to get bigger in muscle size, you don't want to add fat. You want to get stronger. That's huge, especially for athletes looking to move on in the future. And speed, obviously at any position, lineman, corner, the faster the better. So.
Well, first of all, I'd like to clarify that the CFL Combine is coming up too.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Let's not forget
Let's
that.
not forget, yeah, sure.
For those who are Canadian and are trying out for CFL draft status too.
Yeah, I guess just more televised. I've been
Yeah,
kind of
exactly.
following that stuff a little more. So.
A little less televised.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, just based on what you said, from an overview perspective, it's pretty easy to have a straightforward plan.
Yeah.
But first, let me ask you: when you say downtime, it sounds like you mean not actual downtime. Like you shouldn't spend your time on your butt playing Xbox.
Yeah,
when you
exactly.
rest.
Yeah, no, that's one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of time in the gym anywhere, regardless if it's football. People take rest off or days off when they should be doing active recovery type work. So your body works the best when it's moving. Getting more blood into the muscles or getting sort of motion into the injured areas will drastically improve the rate at which they repair. A lot of times, like you mentioned, guys will just sit on their butt and do nothing in the off season. And that's just not going to get you better. You want to put yourself in the best position moving forward when you're moving into your off-season training so that you're feeling healthy. So obviously lower impact exercises are things that I would recommend or things that I've done in the past. Things like biking, even interval training on the bike, 10 seconds off, or 10 seconds on, 50 seconds off, things like that. Whatever gets the blood into your muscles and helps them to repair is going to be huge. There's a lot of other type, not necessarily traditional ways you can keep the body moving, like yoga, for example. That's something I've implemented in the past, and I've had huge results, even like in flexibility, just general muscle, conditioning and things like that. There's just tons of different things you can do. I'd probably keep it low impact and focus on other things like, cold therapy or icing and just whatever's sore, pay attention to it, but give it some time and keep moving would be huge.
What you've said as far as an overview goes, if I was a high school coach or an amateur football coach who hasn't had a lot of experience in training specifically, how could I take that overview you were talking about and implement an off-season plan for my kids?
Oh yeah, sure. Okay, so what I like to do with a lot of athletes is called linear periodization. So basically what it is you progressively move up in weight and down in reps over time with the goal of increasing strength, hypertrophy, and speed. So how this generally looks is it's broken up into 3 phases. First being hypertrophy, second being strength, and finally being power. So in Atlantic Canada, when we have a 6-7 month off season, we can actually get about 2 cycles of this in before a season starts, assuming that you start sort of right off the end of the football season. So if we're talking about a hypertrophy phase, which is generally what you want to start with, you're looking at higher reps, lower weight. So somewhere around 60 to 80-ish% of your 1 rep max. So ideally you would test your guys initially with 1 rep max on things like squat, bench, and deadlift, which are kind of the big 3 that we focus on, or that I like to focus on, kind of the most value, bang for your buck type thing. You would focus on this for about 4 to 6 weeks with the goal of just plainly increasing muscle size. After you finish sort of a hypertrophy cycle of about 4 to 6 weeks, you move into strength. The idea being that the more muscle size you have, the more strength you can actually, or power you can output. So this is where your weights are going to drop, your reps are going to drop, your weights are going to increase. So you look to move towards from 80% up to about 92, 95% of a person's 1 rep max over time. Therefore increasing strength and dropping the reps down. Finally, you'd move into a power phase, which is you kind of move back into the lighter weights. Now with football, it's kind of interesting because linemen, for example, are asked to move a lot of weight all the time. So the focus here is, a lot of people say 50 to 60% of your 1 rep max, but you can go as high as 70-ish, 75. And the focus would be to move the weight as fast as possible. So if I'm an athlete doing a bench press, I might take 60% of my max and focusing on moving it like 3 times as fast as I can, and then putting it back in the rack.
And what about during the season? Do you encourage kids to lift during the season? Or I know at the university level, you guys practice so much that there was very little time for a lift. But
yeah, no, I think it's absolutely crucial to work out during the season. I think if I remember correctly, a couple of years ago, they were talking about the New England Patriots, I believe. Like 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, they're doing like 80% of their max or something crazy in the gym. But it's definitely makes sense to work out in season. It doesn't make sense to do, ABC to build all this muscle and then do X, Y, Z during the season, and the muscle will just fall off. It doesn't make sense to do it. You have to continue to stimulate the muscle in order to keep it there. Now, I wouldn't necessarily go with the same amount of frequency that I would in the off season. In the off season, I would recommend training at least 3 to 4 days a week. I think that's what a lot of the papers are showing is sort of the best level for increasing muscle size and strength and power and things of that nature. So you might want to drop that down to 2 or 3 days a week. I'd definitely keep the same kinds of exercises in with the same amount of reps. But what I put a more larger focus on active recovery type work too. So, just flushing out the body, making sure everything's moving, maybe adding in some extra foam rolling and things of that nature. But yeah, I'd say it's absolutely essential at any level, high school, college, to keep working out during the season.
Perfect. So that rounds us out from season to off season to back to season again. So thank you, Alex, for your time. As coaches, we spend a lot of time telling kids how to be good football players, but sometimes you need a professional to teach them how to be good athletes. And so thanks so much, Alex. Thank you so much for that. And we were very, very pleased to have someone who isn't a chucklehead like us giving us a second opinion here on
giving a one-track mind biased opinion on what you should be doing.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. And so yeah, before we move on to our next segment, I'd like to just mention that this Between the Whistles podcast is brought to you today by CanadaFootballChat.com and their CFC Insider. Register now for your exclusive CFC Insider membership for access to rankings, analysis, and daily football recruiting news all across Canada. Now, guys, speaking of sponsors, this next topic may lose us some friends and possibly some sponsors. When talking about off-season, you can't help but think that there's a number of people out there who are, and I don't want to get straight into the negative, but there's a lot of people out there who offer services to help kids and other players be better at their sports. We'll call it sports-specific training or football-specific training. And there's great gyms out there who just want to help kids get into shape and things like that. But what do you guys think of these guys who have sports-specific gyms and things like that?
Well, I mean, it depends on what you're looking for, right? So if you're just Johnny Football and you started off and you think you like football and you don't really see something coming of it, maybe it's not worth your time or your money. So I think you need to do your research into it, right? Like you can't just show up and say, oh, here's my life savings for my kid to play football and not know what you're going to get out of it.
It's like buying a car, right? I think you gotta research it. You gotta know what you're getting into before you commit to it. Certainly, like if you find a place that is specific to football and your kid likes football and you think it's going to benefit your player, and you've put in the work beforehand to figure out that it's a reputable place, it's going to offer what you want, and you got the money to do it, fill your boots, go ahead. It only makes our team better. Yeah. For if a player wants to go get specific training.
Yeah, and I mean we as coaches have a number of options for our kids to work out in the off season. We're our own group. We have a strength guy who's coming in and helping our kids kind of work out in the off season. But we're not doing that for financial gain. We're doing that for our own personal, still obviously our own selfish reasons, because we want our kids to be better football players and our football team to be better at the end of the day. So. But there are a number of people out there that I know personally. I can say without a doubt that some of them, especially guys who work on very position-specific drills. Like I know a quarterback coach in Toronto who is one of the best I've ever worked with. He's amazing. He does a great job, but he doesn't venture outside of his wheelhouse. He will only work with quarterbacks. And so if I was a defensive lineman and I wanted to get better at pass rushing, I'm not going to go to a QB coach. But if I was a QB and I could look up this guy's credentials, I could see his background. Whether or not the cost is worth it is really up to you and your family to decide whether or not that's something, the cost benefit factor is there. And I think, the value is there in some cases, but it's really what you can afford at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I mean, football's, it's years behind other sports like hockey, for instance, right? Like you can go and get power skating lessons, and they've been around for 25 years. Football's here in Nova Scotia at least, it hasn't grown to the point where there's a lot of places here that are going to offer you that specific thing. You can go to, mainstream gyms and get a personal trainer, and you're going to get all this lifting aspect out of it, but you're not going to get any football related activity out of that.
Yeah. See, that's a good point too, though, because when you do your research for a personal trainer, for example, and this is not a slight on anyone specifically, it is a slight, but not on anyone specifically.
That's right.
You go to a gym, like a big box gym, and I'm not going to name that gym, but and you're seeing some people who do have some certifications, but they don't really have, these people who are personal trainers, the places that charge you, like you could buy bulk packages for personal training, and you have people who are pretty new at that job and honestly have been working out for a lot less time than I have, and I don't consider myself a personal trainer by any stretch. What you get out of that session probably won't be as good as going to someone who is, a 15-year veteran of personal training and fitness in general, and has the credentials to back it up, an athletic background, looks like an athlete, for example.
And maybe like the specific training to a sport probably is going to be a little more expensive than your big box gym personal trainer. But if you do the research on the big box personal trainer and you find out that personal trainer at that place is, maybe they were a sprinter before, maybe they played football before, and you're going in as a football player, they're going to be able to help you and do specific, give you a training program that's going to be specific to what football players do, right? So your deadlifts, your squats, your clean and jerks, your that type of stuff. Whereas if you're going to go and run a marathon, well, that training is going to be completely different, right? So I think it all comes down to research, and whether you're fully committed to it is also the other thing, right? Like
Like you can sit down and you can go to a personal trainer and they can draw you up a plan, and you're going to train with them a couple times a week. But then it's up to you to still go in on those other days and put the work in. Or you can go on Google, and that can be your personal trainer, and you can look up some stuff. I mean, you can look up tons of training programs out there, but it comes down to if you're actually going to sit down, and well, not sit down, but put the work in, right? Are you going to go lift the weights? Because if you're not going to do that, then it's just for naught.
And the other thing you got to look at is the age group you're in, right? I mean, we're talking amateur football, so we're talking from 7 years old all the way up. Is it beneficial for a 7-year-old to get someone training them on lifting weights? No, but maybe it's beneficial that they do get some football, like maybe not a 7-year-old, maybe if you're 9, 10, 11, 12, getting into your high school years, and you only play football maybe, why not do something in the off season related to football? Mm-hmm. If someone's willing to put the money forward and you're willing to put the time in, it only makes you better. Yeah.
And I mean, there's no shortage of options even in our province here. There's really no shortage of options of things that kids can do in the off season. I mean, we have our own provincial organization that runs teams, and you can say what you want about them, but they are what we have. And kids are able to play touch and tackle and there's no rep leagues per se, but they at least have options to play football in the off season, and there are lots of places they can go to seek instruction.
Yeah, like right now we're getting into the end of February here, and there's kids that are playing flag football now. Right, because we now have the facilities, a couple of them, that we can do that. So,
yeah, we've been trying to book some of those facilities. We know that they're booked up solid.
Yeah, but yeah, and I mean, so if you're going to go, here's the thing that I'll throw out is, like, if you're going to go get football specific training or a personal trainer, but there's a program offered at your school, be sure you're at that program. Because that's a team building thing. That's about team. You can go work out 7 days a week with your personal trainer, but if you're missing your team's lift, the guys around go, well, where's that guy, right? Yeah. And I mean, we struggle now with our team anyway. Yeah. But the guys that are coming are getting better. The guys that aren't coming aren't getting better, and they might be working out on their own, but we'll see if it actually comes to fruition. Because
Yeah.
Working, like, listen, I can go to the gym and work out by myself and be fine with how the results that I'm going to get. But if I'm a 17-year-old kid and I have aspirations to go play university football and I'm going to the gym by myself, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get the results that you think you're going to get. Because you're not going to lift as heavy, you're not going to, do the right workouts maybe. Are you even going to do them properly is the other question, right? And that's how injuries happen, and then that's how, come down the road, you blow a knee out, and, or a back or a shoulder, or you've been lifting wrong the whole time. So
I will say the one bonus that we used the golf analogy earlier when we talk about not knowing how bad your golf swing is until you look at a video of yourself doing it, or someone who's a professional looks at it and says, you really have a poor golf swing. I think the one benefit to at least one time in the off season spending time with a personal trainer or with a position specific coach is being able to see what you're doing wrong, because the worst thing you could do is be lifting weights the wrong way and possibly creating injury or bad habits that could translate into years of poor habits.
Well, it's years of poor habits, years of pain, right? Like if you pinch a nerve in your back lifting weights the wrong way, man, that's going to be with you for a very long time. It's not just doesn't go away. So, and then with proper technique, allows you to lift heavy weight. If you're doing it wrong, you're not going to be able to lift it properly and lift what you think you should be able to.
Yeah. Because if you're lifting on your own, and then you're never checking in with your coaches, and then if your school is fortunate enough to have a strength and conditioning coach who's a coach on your team, he can critique what you're doing. It's the same as like a quarterback. When a quarterback in the season his throwing mechanics are off, we tweak it. Well, if your deadlift is off and then we don't see it, like Bobby said, you're going to get hurt, and we're not going to know until we get into season, and then guess what? Now you're on the bench.
Yeah. And you're sacrificing your season, possibly your career.
Your career. That's right.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes to. Like, not everyone wants to have a football career, and that's fine, but the guys that really want it have to put in the work and have to get a professional to, at minimum, like you said, show them how to do it.
Yeah.
And then figure it out. Like, we're not going to be there all summer long. The school's not open, so we can't offer our system for July and August. So you're going to have to do it on your own. But if you're not coming in to learn proper technique and get the proper program, then it's all for naught, right? I mean, there's like lifting. So you can lift weights to become a bodybuilder. You can lift weights to become a football player. There's two different ways. Like, you're not going to get the same benefit, right? Like, if you're going to go there because you want to mass up and look like Lou Ferrigno, like Alex, right? You're not going to get. It's two different ways. It's two different mechanisms, two different ways of lifting weights, right? So
So we can end this by saying that we all agree that at the very least you should be doing something in the off season.
100%.
There's no way of like.
You should be active in some capacity more days than not.
Yeah.
Basically.
So get off your ass, put the Xbox away, and get some work in.
Even if it's like you can find these 30-minute HIIT workouts on your phone on the internet. Like, just go hit one of those. Just sit in your house and do one of those. They take 30 minutes of your day. That's going to be more beneficial than eating chips and playing Xbox. So.
Well, we're in the world now where I can hop on the Apple Store and I can find workout programs that are free, and I can have, blast my core in 5 minutes. I mean, it's never going to happen, but there's no excuse for me not to get off the bench to do it.
Your core is too far gone.
I'm heading to the bar to blast my core right now.
That's right.
So, all right, well, that's great, guys. Thank you, coaches, so much for your contribution. Listen, if you want to hear our podcast, please go to CanadaFootballChat.com and find the Between the Whistles podcast there, or go to BetweenTheWhistles.ca and find our social media, and please, Peanut Gallery, jump in there, send us a message, any topics you want to talk about, anything you want to say, please feel free to hit us up, and we'll be happy to disagree with you.
Yeah, peace.